Good morning, it's Lisa with Lisa Heal Yourself. Today we are going to talk about anger. Let's talk a little bit about anger and why it is there. Why do we have anger and what is it useful for and how do we overcome anger? I'm Lisa with Lisa Heal Yourself and I help people take their healing into their own hands and become their own healer. So if this is something that you're interested in, please click subscribe below and like this video for more videos like it. Okay, so anger. Anger is a form of self-protection. When we get angry or when we feel angry, we feel that we have been threatened in some way, either physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. We feel like our safety, our own personal safety, has somehow been threatened and we don't feel safe in the world. Anger is a very combative emotion. It's a very expressive emotion. And when we are in anger, we are always in fight or flight. So if you have not yet seen my videos about the fight, flight, freeze response, please go and watch that. It's very instrumental in understanding this. But when our nervous system is caught up in fight or flight, our survival mechanisms are being activated, okay? So they're activated quickly, automatically, and our central nervous system is doing this as a form of self-protection. So when we feel threatened in any way, often anger is a reaction, right? This anger, this outburst is a reaction to the threat that we're feeling personally, mentally, physically, whatever. And often in relationships, the people who get on our nerves the most are our family and the closest people to us, trigger us to feel anger. This is because our personal boundaries are being crossed and something is being threatened. Our own sense of who we are, our identity, we're being asked to do or go against something that we believe in, comply somehow with society, norms, the world, cross our own personal boundaries in some way, and it triggers an anger response. Often we feel out of control. Anger is always about control and our place in trying to keep the control, what little control we have, or that we feel is slipping away from us. We use anger as a way to gain control back, to get control back, to be the master of our own lives, to dominate in order so that we may feel in control. Therefore, we may feel safe and our central nervous system can relax again and we can go back to being calm, happy, or having a good relationship and moving forward in our day. Anger is always a reaction to a lack of control. It's a reaction to a lack of feeling helpless. It's a reaction to boundaries being crossed. It's a reaction to feeling unsafe in some way, out of control, feeling hurt, rejected. It's our own coping mechanism so that we may get out of fight or flight quickly, calm our central nervous system down, and feel safe again. It's about getting control back in our life. Anger is also there to distract us or to cover up the fact that the real problem is underneath anger. So anger is never usually the real problem. Okay, it's what's underneath anger. And we're always afraid to go deeper. So when we're talking about the law of vibration and when we're talking about vibrational states, and if you have not seen my video on vibrational states, this is key. Please go watch this. But we start out at the lowest state, right, is powerlessness, hopelessness, helplessness. This is the lowest state that we can be in, and people are often very threatened in their survival at this point. They give up. This is where people commit suicide. This is where people give up. So our nervous system, our brain, our innate being, right, our biology wants to keep us safe from ever going that low vibrationally. So it uses anger as a cover because anger is much higher up on the vibrational scale than helplessness, hopelessness, and powerlessness, which is the lowest. Then we come up to shame and guilt, feelings of loneliness and abandonment, right? And then we're coming up into grief, a little higher. The reason I say grief is higher, even though it's a terrible emotion, is because we're able to express. Usually at this point we can cry, we can release somehow, right? So we're able to work through some of this. We haven't given up yet when we're in grief. We're coping. It's a strategy as well. Then we have fear, okay? Or fear is a very, very extreme emotion where it can cause serious problems in our lives. Anxieties, it can keep us from living our life. It can keep us from getting into new relationships, having new opportunities. I mean, fear keeps us stuck. And again, if you haven't seen my video on fear, go check that out. But fear. Anger is above fear. So now after fear, then we're getting up into places of anger. So anger is above everything that I just mentioned, right? The hopelessness, the helplessness, the powerlessness, the shame, the guilt, the grief, okay? It's above fear. It's above all of that. And now we get to anger. We all have an aversion to anger. We all punish anger. We try to deny anger. We avoid anger. We look at other people who are angry with disgust and repulsion. It is almost societally unacceptable to express or show anger. We feel terrible and ridden with guilt when we act out in anger, and when we see other people acting out in anger, we feel repulsed, disgusted, and we wish to get away from them. If it's our children being angry, we often apply consequences. So anger has a very negative connotation in our society. And a lot of people can deny their anger altogether, afraid to actually feel anger because they think it makes them a bad person. So rather than actually feeling anger, they go to a lower vibrational state. They're afraid to feel anger. So instead, they're feeling fear or helpless. They actually go lower than they need to be on the scale because they're afraid of anger. They're afraid of what it says about them, of it making them a bad person. And they don't understand anger. Instead of being afraid of anger, we need to get friends with anger. We need to meet our anger. We need to let our anger express itself and guide us and show us what is not working in our life, right? Through meditation or journaling or thinking about this, really going deeper with this, doing some of the trigger exercises that I have on triggers. So don't be afraid of your anger, because if you're too afraid to feel your own anger, you may be stuck in lower vibrational energies that you don't need to be at. Anger's trying to pull you forward. It's trying to help you take your power back. So don't sink lower into feelings of helplessness or powerlessness, right? Those are even more dangerous states. So we just use our anger in a healthy way, then it's a better emotion than sinking lower, because we're too afraid to face or feel anger, and we're too afraid of what others will think of us and what we will feel ourselves. So now we get to anger. So we can see that anger is useful, that it is keeping us from feeling everything below anger. And why would it be doing that? Because those feelings below that are a lot worse than anger, right? They cause a lot of threat to our survival. If we're stuck in a grief state, or a fear state, or a shame state, or a guilt state, or a helplessness or a hopelessness state, if we're stuck in those states, our life is worse all around. It's harder for us to climb out of those places, to heal those places, right? So we know instinctually, biologically, not mentally, we know, our biology knows that it is keeping us safe by using anger as a cover emotion for going deeper to see what the real problem is, because usually the real problem is one of those states below. Okay? And when we ask ourselves, when we stop when we're feeling angry, and we ask ourselves what it is we're really feeling, what is anger a cover for? What is the real problem? We will find that we feel abandoned or lonely or not good enough, or we're so sad, or we're feeling empty inside, or we feel unloved. We feel deeply sad, or we feel alone, or we feel scared or confused or hopeless, right? So we will discover the truth of what's really going on. But anger, the thing about anger is that anger is, you are in fight or flight, meaning Your biology has not given up. Some of those other states, the reason why depression and anxiety and the reason why all these other states is you've sort of given up in those states. You're not in fight or flight. Usually at that point, you're in a deep freeze state. You've given up, trying to fight or flee your way out of this personal threat, and you're in a deep freeze. Freeze is trauma, and freeze takes a long time to heal, right? So often, even though anger is repulsive, even though anger feels terrible, there's things underneath anger that we really need to look at and we really need to heal. And it's there for a purpose. Anger is trying desperately to release. Anger is a release mechanism. We release our emotion, we release the energy that's stuck in our body suddenly, and it just comes out. So it helps our energy state, it helps us move through something, because it comes up and it's so, all of a sudden this rage pours out. Well, you're not that you're really angry about that, it's that you've been holding down sadness and grief and fear and shame and guilt and desperation and loneliness and helplessness and hopelessness, and suddenly it comes out in this burst of anger, right? And we feel this release. So we feel, we sometimes feel better in the state of anger, and our biology knows that. So that's why it uses anger to help us through. This is where journaling comes in. When we feel angry, if we journal, we can often excavate what's underneath anger. Or we can often excavate the deeper hurts, the losses, the griefs, right? All of the pain, the hurt, and the fear. The hurt and the fear underneath the anger, which is what we really are looking to get up, to excavate. So journaling works really well. I would like to talk, I am going to be doing a separate video on TMS healing and why people get stuck when they're trying to heal themselves with TMS healing. And I think I've done a video on TMS healing before, but this is my problem with TMS healing. I love it. It's helped me tremendously, but I do believe the focus on anger, Dr. John Sarno believes that at the root, all your pain is coming from anger. And I believe anger is just the cover. So anger is not really what we're digging for. We're not looking back to find all these angers in our life. We're really looking to find the fear and the hurt. It's the fear and the hurt that we need to excavate. And that's why people can get stuck when they're doing a lot of TMS healing work, because they're too busy looking for angers, resentments, frustrations. They're too busy trying to journal about these particular topics when they actually should be looking for the hurt, the deep grief and hurt and fear underneath that anger. But I will do a separate video on that another time. And if you have not seen my video on triggers, working through triggers, please go watch that, because anger is all about being triggered and how we can calm our triggers, how we can work with our triggers, how we can heal our triggers, right? This is really deeper stuff that's going on when we have issues of anger. So if we have a lot of anger and rage, it's an indication that we have a lot of hurt and pain and grief and sadness and these other emotions underneath it that we haven't been brave or courageous enough to look at yet. So if you have a lot of anger, please go watch some of my other videos on these other states, because it's really those states that you need to deal with in order to, resolve what's going on so the anger doesn't come. Because the anger, remember, is just a reaction. It's just a natural biological reaction to help us feel safe and calm and, to help us feel safe and calm and in control. And often when we deal with these underlying problems and hurts and fears and frustrations underneath it, the real root of the problem, then we don't need to use anger as a coping mechanism, as a cover emotion, right? As a way to release our pent up emotions that we've been pushing down. It's just a little release valve is what anger is, to help get some of that out because it's too much that we're holding inside. So if you have a lot of anger and you have a lot of rage, there's an indication that you need to do the deeper work. We also need to deal with the anger and rage that we have. So the first rule with anger and rage is that we mustn't act on our anger and rage, right? So we can feel the feeling. Feeling the feeling is okay. And you need to stop beating yourself up and feeling guilty for having anger, right? We're often, like I said, in our society, conditioned to believe that anger is bad and wrong. Anger is not bad and wrong. Anger is good. Anger is useful. Anger is telling us something. What is bad and wrong is to act on our anger, to put down someone else, to scream at someone else, to hurt or physically endanger someone else, right? To act out in anger is what we're not going to do. But to journal your anger is good. To talk about your anger is good, right? So we're releasing our anger, we're analyzing our anger, we're thinking about our anger, but we're not acting on our anger, okay? That's just an impulse control, and it tells us that we feel very unsafe and threatened, and we must react as a fight response, that we must react to everything in our environment, and we are really not angry with what's going on out there. We are truly angry with ourselves because these other people are triggering us and we feel helpless, we feel out of control, and we wonder why we're putting ourselves in this situation where we feel so threatened all the time by this person, situation, event, whatever it is, this relationship, and the anger is threatening our personal boundaries, our personal, what we believe inside, and it's testing us on a different level. And we really, when we have a lot of anger, need to realize that we need to make a change, because how we're living and who we're in relationships with and what we're doing isn't working for us. We need to change. When we have a lot of anger, we know that it's being brave enough to make a change, right? Either within ourselves, within our own action, being brave enough to go deeper into those deep hurts, or being brave enough to leave the situation, the person, the relationship, or whatever it is that's triggering so much out of control, feelings of out of control and powerlessness and helplessness within ourselves. Okay. But recognizing that anger is not, by virtue of itself, bad, and it's okay. And it's not going to hurt you, and it's not going to kill you to feel this anger. And in fact, that it's trying to lift you up and out, closer to neutrality, closer to courage, closer to taking action in the right way. When we outburst things in the wrong way, we feel it pulls us back into shame and guilt, right? So we're pulling ourselves back and forth. From a lower, anger tries to pull us higher, right? So, but we need to stabilize ourselves in anger and go higher than anger, right? To courage and bravery and action, and in the direction of something more positive as we climb our way to neutrality, where we can sit with these feelings without reacting in one way or the other, right? When we're at neutrality, then we can go to the other side of the scale. We can raise our vibration from there. All of these other higher vibrational energies that we're really wanting to live from, right? Gratitude, love, peace, joy, hope, all of these that we want to get to, right, in our life, and we are using anger as a way to take back our control, to climb up higher towards courage and using our will and, calling our power back into being, and so that we can start to move forward, to make decisions that work for us, right? And we can start to climb up that scale. So, if you are dealing with anger, number one, remember we don't react badly to others. We use our anger as a tool to make positive changes, to make needed changes in our life. We also use our anger to investigate deeper what the real root of the problem is that's going on, so we can be brave enough to see what is not working and what needs healing. We can breathe through anger, When we're in the heat of the moment and we're finding it hard to calm down, we can use calming tools to get us out of fight or flight. So go ahead and watch that video, how to get out of fight or flight. But we do want to be able to do things like deep breathing, calming ourselves down, taking a little break for ourselves, go drinking a tea, doing something kind for ourselves, loving ourselves, journaling, releasing our emotions through writing or meditation, right? We want to release, we want to calm our nervous systems, and we want to remind ourselves every time that we're feeling this anger inside of us, this frustration, this rage, that it's okay, we're okay, and we can be safe. We are safe, we're going to be okay, everything's going to be okay. We breathe, we calm down, we get ourselves out of fight or flight, and then we look at the real issue. What is really triggering our anger? Right? What is really happening, especially if it's a pattern of anger, right? Then we really need to do that investigative work. If it's recurring, if it's repeating, if it's situational, if it's in certain relationships, we need to take a deeper look at this and find out what's underneath so that we can take our own personal power back and be courageous enough to do and be ourselves, to feel content in ourselves, and to make decisions that work for ourselves and our life going forward so that we can feel happy, content, and at peace and safe in our own body and being. Anger can help us move toward what we want. There is nothing wrong with you. You are not broken. Anger is okay. Use it as a tool. Recognize, become aware of what's really going on, and use it to help bring you up and out of these lower vibrational states and into courage and willpower and taking back your power and making an action plan that can help lift you forward onto the other side of the vibrational scale where you want to be. I hope this video has been helpful. Again, if you want more videos like this, please subscribe below and hit the like button, and I will see you in the next video.